is not one woman on this panel. And I almost walked out just on the strength of that. But the only reason why I didn't is because that is a systemic issue here in Congress and often for people who come before this committee. And if you don't have one woman in a position of leadership and authority that should be there, then that is also a problem. But again, women, hundreds of women, the report detailed hundreds of women who experienced harassment with no recourse. For over a decade, the FDIC, under your leadership and your predecessors, ignored them. Chair Gruenberg, in November, in fact, not that long ago, you stated that the FDIC already has, quote, appropriate policies and procedures in place, unquote. Do you now agree, and this is a yes or no question, I'm serious, do you now agree that the policies and procedures in place have been a cataclysmic failure and an affront to the many women who have been harassed, pushed out of the FDIC, and forced to change their career goals and life trajectory?
They have failed, yes, Congresswoman.
I have a teenage daughter, and we like to play a game called Two Truths and a Lie. So if you'll indulge me, we're going to do some variation of that right now. I want to use my platform to clarify some of this disinformation by playing a game called Fact or Fiction. Dr. Caleb, I'll say a statement, and you'll reply with just one word stating if it is fact or fiction. Let's start with this. Fact or fiction? The FDA conducted a rigorous review of extensive research on mifepristone. Correct, that's a fact. Mifepristone has been on the market for almost 24 years, and more than 100 studies have affirmed its safety since. Fact or fiction? Judges know better than public health experts if medication abortion is safe.
I can't comment directly on that because the Supreme Court is currently adjudicating a case that involves it. But I am on record, and so are all of us, that it would be bad for the entire system of drug development and availability of medications in the United States if judges begin overruling the FDA as a matter of routine.
Thank you. So that's fiction. The FDA, not the courts, determines the safety of drugs. Fact or fiction? Mifepristone as a form of medication abortion is safe and effective.
Fact.
Correct, that's fact. Research shows that less than 1% of patients experience serious side effects, posing fewer risks even than Advil or Tylenol. The facts are adding up. Mifepristone is a safe, effective, and routine form of health care that remains necessary and legal across the nation. Now, this may be a game for today's hearing, but unlike Republicans, I have no interest in playing games with people's lives. And this is gravely serious. For many, especially Black women, pregnancy and childbirth can be life-threatening. Colleagues across the aisle have waged an all-out war on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm not sure if it's that they just hate one aspect of it, like diversity, or if it's the combination of all three.
So there's this September 5th, 2023 piece in Air and Space Force magazine, and it's titled in part, "Why Diversity Should Scare the Hell Out of Our Adversaries." And I've never seen the fear in someone's eye when they're confronted with diversity, but
I think part of this DEI stuff, insofar as we insert it in younger children, implies that if you're not of European ancestry, you're not going to do as well in this country.
Is it worth funding the DEI programs in the military? What good has it brought to the military? We have the biggest recruitment crisis that we've ever had. That is a fact. And I believe that the DEI programs and the politicization of our military is another big reason why.
It is no surprise that the same people complaining about DEI are the same people who complained about the Me Too movement, about Black Lives Matter, about the ERA, about the gay rights movement, and so much more. The fact that as soon as someone who is Black or gay has a disability earns a promotion, Republicans complain that they are unqualified and begin ranting about how diversity, equity, and inclusion is ruining the country. It's shameful, it's untrue, it's discriminatory, and we must not back down in our efforts to create a nation that respects all people. Might I add that the opposition is majority overwhelmingly white and male. Thank you, Commissioner, for joining us today. First, let me just also acknowledge and thank you for your responsiveness and your swift action on my outreach to you regarding formaldehyde and chemical hair relaxers, also the shortage of children's Tylenol and Motrin. Personally, as someone living with alopecia totalis, I also appreciate your efforts in that regard. And finally, for the purposes of my question line today, reproductive justice. Dr. Califf, last year the FDA took pivotal steps to protect medication abortion access, including by allowing abortion pills to be prescribed by telehealth and distributed by retail pharmacies. Medication abortions accounted for 63% of all abortions performed in the United States last year. If mifepristone is pulled from the market, access to routine medical care would be jeopardized for people across the country. As part of their draconian, unpopular goal for a national abortion ban, let's call it what that is, forced birth, which for many will result in forced death, Republicans continue to try to block access to medications like mifepristone by spreading baseless conspiracy theories. The fake news is rampant. Now, I know this is a shock to the far-right extremist old white men making these decisions, but there are hundreds of reasons why someone might want or need to terminate a pregnancy with medication abortion, and policymakers and judges should not be the ones making decisions for them. If Republicans and anti-abortion extremists have their way, access to mifepristone will be cut in every state, blue or red, even in my district, the Massachusetts 7th, where abortion care is legally protected. Since I've been elected to Congress, I've been proud to lead the Abortion Rights and Access Task Force under our Pro-Choice Caucus, fighting alongside my colleagues for mifepristone access. I'll continue to fight to affirm abortion care as the fundamental human right that it is, and I urge my colleagues to do the same. Thank you, and I yield. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The work of the FDIC is paramount in supervising our banks, strengthening our financial system, finalizing important regulations like Community Reinvestment Act, Basel III, and in times of economic crisis, FDIC is even more important. It was just last year when folks in my district, the MA 7th, were constantly refreshing the agency's webpage to see if their money was safe after the failure of Silicon Valley Bank. The agency's mission is critical, and there is much work to do. Now, I had initially planned to spend this time discussing regulations and requesting updates from Chair Gruenberg on the timeline for finalizing rules that stabilize our financial system. However, after reading the recent report into the FDIC's workplace, the public needs answers on the toxic culture of racial discrimination and misogyny that has taken root and festered at the FDIC. Chair Gruenberg, you have failed your staff, people of every walk of life, but especially women employees who have brought their knowledge and their skills to serve at the FDIC, and you have failed the American public who relies on the agency to work productively and to put forth policies that protect consumers from bank malfeasance. Now, I have to just consider the source here when it comes to some of the outrage from my colleagues across the aisle, because these are the same people who seek to actively defund diversity, equity, and inclusion, who denied and undermined the Me Too movement, who voted against the Violence Against Women reauthorization, and who don't want to support finally passing the Equal Rights Amendment. And that is why I am truly disgusted by the fact that you have created an opportunity for Republicans who did all of those things to advance their anti-regulation agenda and to use survivors, which I am one, of abuse as political pawns. This Republican majority has demonstrated it's out of touch with the priorities of everyday people and has focused its effort on passing legislation and budgets to undermine DEI and entrench systemic discrimination against people of color, folks with disabilities, and other marginalized groups. Republicans sought to defund the Office of Civil Rights in the Department of Education, which is essential to confronting the rise in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia impacting our students. Republicans voted to stop the hiring of DEI personnel in the military, despite evidence that it will improve military readiness. And Republicans consistently use harmful rhetoric at every opportunity to undermine the talent, knowledge, skills, and the training of professionals in every sector where DEI initiatives exist. And they often pervert, mischaracterize, and weaponize the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., despite the fact that his surviving children, have repeatedly asked them to cease and desist from doing so. Now, President Biden signed a historic executive order on his first day in office to take a whole-of-government approach that embodies equity in the administration's work to ensure all people benefit, not just the wealthy and well-connected. Mr. Miller, the Office of Management and Budget plays an outsized role in implementing and overseeing the executive orders on equity. Can you explain why equity is an important part of performance goals for agencies?
Thank you, Congresswoman. And there was a phrase that you used that is central to explaining it, is that government should work for all Americans. So one example of something that we are doing is around accessibility associated with government services. We have many government digital websites and services where it's hard for some people, including disabled individuals, to access those government services, and we're working to improve that. Our services aren't working if they're not serving all of America.
Very good. I agree. What is an example of how President Biden's executive order on equity has helped folks across the country?
Well, one of the things that we have done is to broaden and discussed in this hearing the way in which we are utilizing federal financial assistance to reach more broadly into communities, to improve performance of the dollars, to make sure that community-based organizations that might otherwise not have applied for federal funds are able to access those funds and better deliver because they're closer to those in their community. That means better results, that means more efficiency, and frankly, that means less waste on useless overhead.
Thank you. The executive order, this is truly a first of its kind. I'm proud to partner with Ranking Member Raskin on legislation to codify key aspects into law so that they will exist in perpetuity. The truth is that America needs DEI to disrupt systems of oppression that are active in every facet of our society. DEI initiatives are how we combat white supremacy, anti-Semitism, ableism, sexism, transphobia, and more. In the face of this opposition, I applaud those who are committed to doing this work, from college presidents, corporate executives, to community organizers and academic researchers. And to those who are against DEI, I would love to know really what you are so afraid of. What are you so threatened by? Thank you. I yield.